I'm sitting here with one of our art mentors for our Artworks program, Deb Colligan. Can you tell me a little bit about your pathway to becoming an artist? What made you decide upon this path? Did you always love art? Was there anything specific that inspired you?
I just loved painting from when I was a little kid, and then when I was in high school, and that's why it's so inspiring to work with Artworks high school students. I had this amazing art teacher, and I took art 1, 2, and 3 in ninth, 10th, 11th grade. No, 10th, 11th, and 12th in those days, and he said the last year of when I was a junior, he said, you have 18 periods of art a week. So I think that's too much. He said, I think you need to go to art school now and graduate. So he was really an inspiration. Uh, it- Bill Bamerman, he was great. And he went to the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. And he said, you should go there. And I had started going to night school there with my father, and taking a continuing education when I was in high school. And my father quit because the teacher gave him a bad crit and gave me a good one. So that was the end of, but I kept going, and I really liked the school. So I, my teacher and the dean of the school, the principal, got me out of school in 11th grade, 6 months before I I became, like, it was halfway through my junior year, because he said, you have too much art to do. And I got into the academy, and it was really cool. And I skipped my first year there, which was really good. I didn't have to take anything, history or anything. I just went right into the studio. So that's how I got my start in art.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, well, the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts is the first art school and first art museum in the United States. It's like 210 years old now. And Mary Cassatt went there, and um, oh boy, a lot of people. It's a really good school for students. And one of my students, you know, she was interested in going there, but my artwork student, she ended up going to another school.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I did all kinds of art. When I was a kid, I did sculpture, and I was a mentor to a famous sculptor. Which,
Really?
yeah, yeah, I was 14, and he did the flag raising in Iwo Jima, and he wanted to mentor me to become a sculptor, but I didn't become a sculptor. I
Mhm.
loved it, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Do you have an experience with any other mediums besides painting and sculpting?
Um, Drawing, I did a lot of drawing, pencil sketches, and um, I have a lot of, I've done acrylics, watercolors, but I like oil painting the best,
Mhm.
and pencil drawings. I have a lot of fun doing pencil. I can show you some pencil portraits later
Sure,
that
I'd love to see them.
yeah, from when I was younger.
Mhm.
They're all, so yeah, I've done a lot of art over the years. And as a kid, I always came to the Cape and Islands. When I was growing up, I went to RISD when I was in high school. I was in the student program, which is a great program, and it was the first time they did it. And on weekends, I used to go to Nantucket and paint. And I got hooked up with a gallery, and I was only like 15, 16. It was cool. That Nantucket was a lot different then.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore. It's changed, but it's still a nice island.
Oh, very.
And the vineyard too. I did a lot on the vineyard also. I did a lot of artwork on both islands of the Cape.
And now you live here.
Yeah, now I live here. I've been here 11 years. Well, more than 11. Yeah, about 11, 12. Since 2008.
Yeah,
That's,
so 12 or 13 years then.
yeah, yeah. Love it. The Cape and Islands is a great place for artists to live year round.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard in the summer because if you paint in plein air, you know, there's a lot of people around. But
Yeah.
fall and spring are great for in plein air painting.
So you
But
have a very long-standing career of art. Are there any specific highlights or really big accomplishments you've had during your artist career that you'd like to share?
yeah, well, I've had some in Philadelphia with Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. I was the vice president of their fellowship and curator for their shows. And the fellowship is an organization of artists over the past couple hundred years. And I did art shows in a historic area that used to be the Academy's summer um, place, which was really cool. And it, like in the early 1900s, that was the Academy Summer School. And it was called, it's historic Yellow Springs. It's a really cool place. And then I had some really interesting shows on the Cape. I did a Healing Through Art show in 2012. I guess I should talk about my traumatic brain injury, which changed my path as an artist because um, after I had the traumatic brain injury on a horse, the doctors didn't think I'd be able to draw or paint. And I wasn't allowed to hold pencils or pens or anything. And then the Academy had a talk at the Doctors Hospital of Philadelphia, which is a national doctor's hospital. And they had a doctor talking about the neuroaesthetics of a person. He was talking about a man that went to the academy that had a stroke. And this was about 6 months after I was discharged from the hospital, that I was in for 4 months in rehab for 4 months. And it was really interesting because this doctor, Anjan Chatterjee, he did this big talk and he showed the progression of this man that had a stroke that was a realistic artist and it went to abstract for portraits. He did realistic. And I said, I met him and I said that I still can paint realistically. So he had an intern and a staff member follow me in the studio and watch me. And he was really amazed that I could continue painting realistically. And that's been my inspiration to mentor. And also I do work with people with disabilities. I have students in capabilities residences, Latham, and then students that are living with their parent, all adults, and they're all so inspired. And then Bryn Mawr Rehab Hospital has a exhibit. It's an annual exhibit, and that's an accomplishment the show they had, it's called Artability, and it's been going on for 25 years. And Artability is a show for people with disabilities. And it's at Bryn Mawr Rehab Hospital in Pennsylvania, where I lived for 4 months. So when I got out of the hospital, well, no, when I was still in the hospital, I didn't know who people were. I didn't know anything. And then I remembered one Artability, the show was up, and I went to PT and I said, that was my student's painting he did with me. I used to teach painting in Yellow Springs at an art center. And this guy had a traumatic brain injury. And I asked him why a woman kept coming to his classes. And he said, oh, I had traumatic brain injury. You ever hear of one? I said, no. He said, she's my caregiver and she has to watch me. So the next day I had a traumatic brain injury. And Sal, the guy Sal, he's still in Artability, and we actually had a Zoom meeting with the curator of Artability, and she told me that she said, you know, it's really cool. I told her that story. She didn't know that story because she's a new curator. So every year I've been juried into the show, and one of my students I mentored this year, I think is going to put her work in, which is really cool.
That's right. Yeah, I hope she's able to get in.
Yeah, her work is beautiful, I think. And then two of my students, three of them actually submitted, my differently abled students submitted artwork to them. So, uh-oh, there, sorry. So it's really cool. And then some other shows I did that I'm really proud of. Well, one I'm proud of is I have a painting exhibited at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of Vinnie Lopez, who was Bruce Springsteen's original drummer for the East Street Band. And in 2014, the band got, you know, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Vinnie texted me, they came to his house, and I did a painting of him like, I don't know, 40 years ago. And he said they took that and they wanted to put it in in the museum, in the East Street Band collection, which is cool. And then I had I did a Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts exhibit at the Cape Cod Museum of Art and on Martha's Vineyard. When I moved to the Cape, I thought that there were probably some New England artists that should be recognized that lived on the Cape and Islands and New England. So I partnered with PAFA, and we did a show at Cape Cod Museum of Art in 2012. And then there was a pre-show on Martha's Vineyard at a gallery in Vineyard Haven. And that was really cool. And then my other accomplishment was, this is 2018. I had a show called Artistic Trails of Healing through art. And it was the exhibit of my students. My students were also in the exhibit. And it was really cool. It was at Highfield Hall and Music Gardens. And then I coordinated with the director at Highfield to bring Artability. So they had an Artability show, a satellite show that coincided with my show and my students' work show. And it was really, really cool. The Artistic Trails of Healing was, it was 2018. spring 2018, and sold a lot of work, my students' work, and so did Art Ability sold work. And that was the first show they had outside Pennsylvania, the first satellite show. And then the last thing that I'm pretty proud of, there was an article in Cape Cod Times I was featured, and that was 2017, when Bruce Springsteen was doing his Broadway show. I had a life-size painting of Bruce Springsteen, and Bruce would always do this fundraiser for the Bob Woodruff Foundation, because Bob Woodruff was a reporter who had a brain injury in Iraq for ABC, and him and his wife started the Bob Woodruff Foundation to help veterans with brain injuries. So I thought, well, I have this life-size painting of Bruce Springsteen, and he's not going to be playing there, so why don't I donate the painting? So I called my friend Allie, who works for Bruce, and she hooked me up with the Bob Woodruff Foundation. And Bruce decided, Bruce and his manager and the whole team decided to donate tickets to the show, a signed guitar. And the show is at Madison Square Garden. It's on Veterans Day every year. And they used my painting, and they had so many bids on it, they decided it would be good if Bruce did, donate, and he wanted to. So he donated 2 tickets to his show, a signed guitar, meet and greet after the show, and a trip to New York City. So it was through this website that does a lot of things with artists, musicians, and they raised $585,000, which was really good.
That is, yeah.
So that was quite an accomplishment.
You've had a lot of those.
Well, it wasn't my painting that got it was Bruce, but it was nice, and a couple from New Jersey won it, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they saw the show, and he's an old friend, so it was really cool. I was in the Cape Cod Times and Rolling Stone too. I was like,
Look at you go.
Yeah, they talked about it for people to go to the link, which was cool. So that was, really cool. And then doing the show at Cotuit, Healing Through Art, in 2012 is really nice. And I had over 100 pieces of art in that exhibit. Not mine.
Okay.
I had about 10 of my pieces, but
that's still a lot.
Yeah, but I had a lot of people, because the one thing the Cape doesn't really have is shows for differently abled people. There haven't been a lot, so it was nice that David King did it at Cotuit. And then I taught at the Cultural Center. I taught differently abled and Cotuit, so I've given back to the art community and the disabled people to help. And they're all talented.
Oh, yes.
Really talented. It's fun.
So it sounds like you've done a lot to help out the creative economy on Cape Cod then.
Yeah, definitely. And I have artwork in Provincetown, and I've done a lot of work with the Cultural Center and Cotuit. Cotuit, when we lived in Falmouth, I volunteered there a lot. Obviously, not now because COVID.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I forgot to tell you, I had a show called Music on Canvas in 1982, before you were born, probably.
Yes, quite.
And that was really cool. That was on MTV, and I had 1,000 people come to the show.
Wow.
Yeah, it was in New York City, and Todd Rundgren bought my painting, and then Adam Clayton from U2 bought. Todd Rundgren bought my painting. Well, actually, his manager bought it as a gift for him, and then um, U2, they wanted to use my painting of U2 for their tour, but then Adam Clayton decided he wanted to buy it. And my lawyer told me I wouldn't make any money if they used it, so the print company. But it was a really good show. Aerosmith was there, Bruce and the E Street Band, The Clash. It was really cool.
Yeah, a lot of big names.
Yeah, yeah. And it was at a restaurant gallery that went out of business after my show. That's okay. But my lawyer, my music attorney, because I was in the music business, was really into art and my work and me pursuing my life as an artist, which was great because the musicians made me crazy.
Well, we're happy you chose art because that means we get to have you in the artworks program.
Right. Right.
It all works out.
Yeah. Yeah. All artists have big egos, musicians, and I've done a lot of portraits of musicians, animals, and people, and it's really. When I lived on Nantucket, I did portraits of. Oh my God, I did so many portraits on Nantucket, and that was like a long time ago. And I also was an artist on the High Line. I did pencil portraits on the High Line. Which was really cool, except it got a little tiresome with the tourists.
I bet. Yeah.
Especially the people that got seasick.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
But it was fun. It was really fun. I did, going on High Line, going between Nantucket and Hyannis. I lived on Nantucket, then I moved to Hyannis, and that was a long time ago too. It was fun though. It was
Yeah.
really fun. And I did portraits in New York. I did portraits at a restaurant that all these musicians and actors it was called Cafe Central. And the bartender was this really crazy guy. He was an actor. And if any guys came up, this was way before I met Dennis, any guys came up to me at the bar, and I sketched like Cher and all these people that would come in. The bartender was Bruce Willis. That was a long time ago, but that's what he did.
Yeah.
He was a bartender. And he was pretty cool,
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a very colorful past.
Very. So, in addition to building artist skills, do you feel that there are any soft skills such as self-confidence or organizational skills that you feel are important towards having a career as an artist?
Oh, yes. Multitasking is really important for artists. That's one thing I, stress to my students because you have to be able to organize and administrate your artwork to get it to sell. And then when you go to a gallery, you need to do a contract because you don't know if you'll get your 50% or, New York, the galleries are 80%. 80% for them, 20% for the artists. That's why art's so expensive in New York.
Wow.
Boston, it's 60-40 at some galleries. Um, so I try to, stress to artists. And then the other thing on the sale of artwork and self-employment, I try to tell artists, I had a program called Don't Fear the Tax Man that I did with the IRS. And I did it at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts and Moore College of Art in Philly. I was director of a nonprofit that did pro bono accounting for artists and nonprofits. So I always had artists coming to me saying, why am I getting hit with this? Because they don't pay taxes on their artwork. You need to pay taxes on the art. And it was funny because I worked with accountants, and just a short funny story. The head of the IRS that did all the, talks for me, he asked me to talk, and then he said, what? You're an artist? I thought you were an accountant. I said, no, I'm the director of this organization, but I am not an accountant. I'm an artist. And, one woman came to me and said she sold $50,000 worth of artwork in Greece and she didn't pay taxes on it. And she's in trouble with the IRS. I said, don't talk to me.
Yeah, I bet.
She's,
Don't get me involved in this.
no, well, so that's what I try to tell, everyone I work with that wants to follow a path in art, that they need to think about that, And also, all of my students I've mentored, I talk to them about teaching, as another venue to pursue as an art teacher, whether it's for an art center or college, high school, just so they have something to fall back on, But a lot of them are interested in animation and stuff like that, which there's a big market for.
Yeah, it's a very growing part of the arts right now.
Yeah, and so many of them are really talented artists doing their own work and creating their own work. And Cape Cod has a lot of venues, but a lot of them are all the same.
Yeah.
The same kind of art. And I encourage my students to be themselves and do what they want, not what the gallery wants. You need to take a step back and say, I don't want to paint hydrangeas and lighthouses. I want to do what I want to do. Like my two students this year that I mentored, they use their imagination on photographs that I'd show them and turn them into a whole different subject matter, which is great. And that's what they should do, students, follow their own career path and be inspired to do what they want to do, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I love the Artworks program. I think giving high school students insight to all the mediums that are available to them. And even if I have some students, I had one student that only wanted to draw in black and white. He didn't want to do color, but that's fine, But he did go outside his, idea of just doing black and white and tried something new. So it's really inspiring when you see them, and you guys do such a great job on, going to all these kids and interviewing them and finding their passion and what they want to pursue. And, the schools are great on Cape Cod. They have great programs, but they don't give them a lot of some of them want to go in another direction that it's hard to do when you have to follow the path on what this subject is the teacher gives you to create the artwork of. I mean, I taught at JFK Museum in Hyannis, and that was really cool, to have my students draw pictures of the Kennedys, and it was really neat. I had access to all the pictures, and they all interpret it their own way. And I always tell my students that I mentor and that I teach, don't make it look like the picture I'm showing you. Do what you want to do, make it what you want it to be, and not be afraid to experiment with, and a lot of them have go into abstract. A lot of my students, they'll turn a seascape into an abstract painting. Or like last week, I did 4 circles, and they all put different ideas and faces in them. And, so it's really important, I think, for high school students to get out of their zone a little bit because they're so focused on their schoolwork, math, science, English. And they have great art programs that offer them something. But what Artworks does is so different. You give them a venue to go to be themselves, and even have their parents be involved, which is great in their work. And, the virtual program you did, that was wonderful to hear everyone speak. It's great that, the shows that we've done in the past at the Cultural Center and the Four Seas and in Wellfleet, at Wellfleet Preservation Hall a long time ago. But I think the virtual gave everyone a chance to speak, and talk about their work. And it's hard when you're in a big room with a group of people for everybody to talk about each piece. So thank you. That was really good to do that. I think it really made my students happy, definitely, to express themselves and how they feel. It was very cool.
I'm glad to hear that. That's what we were trying to go for with the virtual, because we knew that you're missing out so much of that in-person contact without the in-person. But something that the in-person meetings lack is that everyone can't hear everyone else speak. You might go around and talk to a couple of the other students, a couple of the mentors, but you're not going to get to hear every single person speak.
No. And you can't focus on the work because everyone's eating all the appetizers, the food. So,
Yeah.
and and it's wonderful the cultural centers does it. I think the cultural center is wonderful. And I was so happy mentoring there. And, when Kara and I started talking about the possibility of doing shows there, it was great that Amy, who's great, put that together for us to do the shows there. But you were able to show so much work, more work than you can show in the small vault in that
Oh yeah.
room. So that was really good. And the book, having the book, and I posted that on social media for people to look at, and I'm sure my students did too. So it was good, and to hear them speak about their work and what they did, and the mentors too. It was really nice to see the mentors, and hopefully next year there'll be more students and more mentors.
If you give one piece of advice for any young artist thinking about pursuing a career in the arts, what would it be?
Okay, that would be, I use this in my artist statement. That would be what Vincent van Gogh said. If you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. Isn't that cool?
That is. That's a really nice one.
Yeah, no. And Vincent van Gogh saying that, he did some pretty amazing work
He did.
with no training. And so that's one thing I would say. And I think it's really important for the students to be expressive, creative, and express their exuberant spirit and happiness through their art. It's really important to, stay happy and bright, you know, don't let anything bring you down. And art is, if you're down and depressed, paint or create, that's so important to paint and or create anything, you know. The healing through art helped me, and it's important to express yourself, and provided the feelings are real and taken from your own experience, and capture what you want, whether it's paper, sculpture, paint, you know, express yourself. And I think both my students this year did that, you know. But when you see an animal that looks at you, you can do that.
It was really nice to talk with you, Deb.
You too. It was
Thanks for
really
sitting down with me.
sure. I hope it was okay what I said.
Oh, 100%. Don't worry.